Hi, I'm Jennifer, and I want to go over our favorite dry campgrounds in Northern California for you to try in 2024. Now, if you're wondering what a dry campground is, we do have a video that goes over this. I will add a link in the description. But basically, dry campgrounds are our favorite campgrounds because they tend to focus on the natural beauty and less on amenities. So in California, most of the state parks are dry campgrounds, and they have larger, more private sites, and we just really like that type of campground over things such as an RV resort. So here are our 10 favorite dry campgrounds in Northern California for this year. Number 10 is Damme State Park in Little River, California. This was a beautiful campground, and we had an amazing campsite here. It was large, it was private, it even had its own little trail towards the back of it. We really liked this campsite. The campground itself was nice, but the majority of the sites weren't quite this nice. Most of the sites in the main loops were a little bit closer together. This site also had a great location. It was only minutes away from the town of Mendocino, and it was a short drive from Fort Bragg. There were trails here, though they were not dog-friendly, and there was beach access, but you did have to cross Highway 1 to get there. This is a dry campground, but they did have a dump station. Number 9 is Burlington Campground in Wright, California. Burlington Campground is one of the Humboldt Redwoods State Park campgrounds. And honestly, this has been one of our favorite campgrounds that we visited. We would have put this higher on the list, except there were not very many sites that you could easily park a 20-foot rig. The site we had was one of two that we thought would be really easy to park our trailer in. We were there in the springtime, and we basically had the campground to ourselves. This place is just filled with redwood trees, which is beautiful and wonderful to be around. It is also the reason why it's a little harder to park a trailer at many of these sites. Most of the hiking trails around here are not dog-friendly. The closest dog-friendly trail that we found was all the way up in Fortuna. But you really can't beat the beauty, and this was a wonderful campground just to hang out right at camp. This is a dry campground, and there is no dump station. Number 8 is Stillwater in Jenner, California. This is a Sonoma County regional park, and this campground is right off of Highway 1. So you do have to take a few of the twistier parts of Highway 1 to get here, but once you get to camp, it really is a lovely place to camp. It's a smaller campground, so you do have to get reservations a little bit early, but it's nice because since it is smaller, it does feel very quiet here. One of the things we love about Stillwater is the hiking trails are all dog-friendly and they are just beautiful. There are ferns, there are redwood trees, there is even the beach. They all start in the same area, but there are 3 different paths that you could take. We have done them all. We love all of them, and this is one of our favorite places to hike and to camp. Number 7 is Russian Gulch State Park in Mendocino, California. This is another one of those amazing campgrounds where you not only have some nice trees at camp, but you also have access to the beach and there are hiking trails. Now, not all of these hiking trails are dog-friendly. I think there are some that look like they'd be pretty nice, lots of ferns that are not dog-friendly, but there are still dog-friendly trails right at camp that have great ocean views and are definitely worth doing. This is another smaller campground, and there are less sites that would easily accommodate a 20-foot trailer, but there are a few, and it is definitely worth snagging one and checking this place out. It's also very close to the town of Mendocino and not far from Fort Bragg. Number 6 is MacKerricher State Park in Fort Bragg, California. This is a large campground. There's lots of sites here that can easily take a 20-foot rig or larger. These sites are a little bit smaller, and they are kind of close to neighbors, but they do a pretty good job of kind of hiding the neighbors with hedges. So even though your neighbor is right there, it does feel a little bit more private than it would otherwise. One of the things we love about MacKerricher is there's a boardwalk trail that you could take from the campground. It is dog friendly and it is a really fun way to walk along the ocean. There's a spot you can stop to go and play on the beach, and there's another place to stop for whale watching. The kids always have a lot of fun just running along this boardwalk. This is a dry campground, but they do also have a dump station available. Number 5 is Richardson Grove State Park in Garberville, California. This is another campground that has you right in the middle of the redwoods. There was a massive redwood tree right in the middle of our campground. It was the first thing we saw looking out the trailer, and the kids just loved climbing on this thing. I think they would have been happy staying at camp, climbing on this tree the whole time we were there. But this campground does also have access to the Eel River. You can walk to the Eel River from the campground. The dog can go too. And this was such a fun area just to splash around and have some fun in the water. Most of the trails here are not dog friendly, but there is a trail that you can take to go between the different campground loops and then also to go down to the river, and the dog can go on those. So for us, that felt like plenty of hiking to take our older dog on. It gave us some paths to explore, and we had fun with that. The one downside to this campground is most of the sites that would fit a 20-foot trailer are pull-throughs, which are right on the side of the road. The nice thing is the campground clearly states which sites are best for trailers, but we were very happy with the site we had. It was not a pull-through, it was a back-in, and it was pretty off-level, but it was worth it to be tucked right in with the redwood trees. Number 4 is Wright's Beach in Bodega Bay, California, which is part of the Sonoma Coast State Parks. This is an amazing campground, but it is also very small, very popular, and hard to get a site at. The sites are small, there is no privacy, but this campground is right on the beach. There are a handful of sites that are right on the beach. You can walk from your picnic table to the beach right there, and then the rest are not far back. This is the closest that we have camped to a beach in Northern California. It was a little windy here, and like I said, there wasn't much privacy, but it felt well worth it to be able to camp right at the beach. It's so close that it's so easy to carry your sand toys and get all set up for a fun day to spend on the beach. Number 3 is Doran Beach, also in Bodega Bay, California. And this is a Sonoma County regional park. This is very close to the last campground we mentioned, Wright's Beach, but it is much larger. The sites are larger too. It's easier to park a 20-foot trailer at most of these sites than it is at the last campground. And the sites are not directly on the beach like they are at Wright's Beach, but they are not far. There are several paths you can easily take to just walk over to the beach. So this campground is basically one long strip, and you have water all around you. On one side, you have the beach, the ocean, and then the other side, the side that's actually closer to the campsites, you have the Bodega Harbor. And this area is really fun too, because during low tide, you could go down there and check it out. The one downside about this campground being surrounded by water is it is always windy here. There is some really extreme wind here. This is definitely the windiest campground that we have ever been at every time we come. So if you like beach camping, this is definitely a place worth checking out. And it is a dry campground, but they do have a dump station. Number 2 is Hendy Woods State Park in Philo, California. This campground is one of our family's favorite places to camp. This campground is in a redwood grove, and every site just has a ton of redwood trees. There are logs to climb on. We always see banana slugs. We always have a really good time here. To us, Hendy Woods just feels like camping should be. We've been here several times and we plan to come back several more. The one downside, like I've mentioned for most of the California state parks, is the hiking trails are not dog friendly. We have done them before on a visit where we did not have our dog, and they're pretty cool. There's a little hermit hut that you can check out, and they're definitely worth doing. So it's too bad that if you camp with a dog, it kind of excludes you from the hiking trails. But even without hiking, we love just riding bikes around camp and just hanging out right at the campsite. Now, before we get to number 1, I do have a couple honorable mentions that I did want to talk about. First is Bodega Dunes in Bodega Bay, California, which is another Sonoma Coast State Park. So Wright's Beach is one of the Sonoma Coast State Parks, and then this one, Bodega Dunes, is the other. Bodega Dunes is much larger than Wright's Beach, and it's a little bit easier to get a site here. The sites are also larger and a little bit more private. The downside is it's further from the beach, and the beach is not dog-friendly, unlike Wright's Beach. One of the things that really sets Bodega Dunes apart from the two other campgrounds in Bodega Bay, Doran Beach and Wright's Beach, is because it's further from the ocean, there is much less wind here than at the other campgrounds. So this one is less of a favorite of ours because we camp with our dog and the dog can't go on the trails or the beach here. But the campsite that we had here was truly amazing, and the kids had so much fun, even though we really didn't leave camp the whole time. There was a sand dune right at our camp. The site was massive. There were some trails towards the back of it, and the kids could play with their beach toys without having to go anywhere because the entire site was filled with sand. So not every site here has this much sand, but still, this was really a fun place to go. The next campground I wanted to mention is Nevada Beach in Zephyr Cove, Nevada. Now, the reason why this campground is not in the number 1 spot is because it's not in California. It is in Nevada. But this place is really amazing. The sites are pretty large. There's less privacy between your neighbors. You can still see them, but the sites are large enough that it just doesn't matter. What we really love about this campground is on one side of the campground, you have Lake Tahoe. So you can go play in Lake Tahoe. There's a dog-friendly area. There's lots of space. It's really fun to play right there at the beach on Lake Tahoe. And then on the other side of the campground, you have a nature trail. So there's a really large hiking area, and it was all dog-friendly, and it was all pretty level. It was really good for the kids and for the dog. And there was kind of one main loop and then a few different cut-throughs. So even though we walked around there a couple of times, we took different paths and we really enjoyed it every time. Okay, now for the number 1 campground in Northern California to try in 2024, our pick was Elk Prairie Campground in Oric, California. Elk Prairie Campground is part of the Prairie Creek Redwoods State Park, but it's also part of the Redwoods National and State Parks. So this place is not only a California state park, it is also a national park. And this place was amazing. This is definitely a place worth seeing. So our campsite, first of all, it was a pull through, but it was a little bit off the road. There was some bushes that were separating our site from the road. So it was easy to park because it was a pull through. And then we were really excited to find out that we could actually hop down and play in the creek right at our campsite. So our campsite backed up to the creek, but we were actually able to go in there and explore it. And this was truly amazing. It felt like our own private lagoon. We didn't see anybody else down there. This campground was just so quiet and peaceful. And you'd think that our site was the only one that went down there. But looking around camp, there are other sites that can access the creek too. There is actually a handful of sites that we picked out that we thought would be great ones to camp in. So this place had ferns, it had redwood trees, it had water. It was really, really beautiful here, and we enjoyed hanging out at camp. It's also in a great location. It was close to Fern Canyon and Gold Bluffs Beach, and our campground fee actually included the entrance cost to Fern Canyon and Gold Bluffs Beach. So we went and checked those out and didn't have to pay anything extra, which was kind of a nice bonus. But that area was beautiful. The dog couldn't go into Fern Canyon, but was able to go to Gold Bluffs Beach. This campground is also not too far from the Trees of Mystery. This was another thing that the kids just loved doing. It was a little pricey, but it felt well worth it. It was kind of a guided walk. We got to go up a canopy trail in the redwoods. We got to go on a gondola up to the top of the mountain. The dog even came with us. The kids pretty much skipped through this entire thing with smiles on their faces. Elk Prairie is a dry campground and there is no dump station there. It is also, like I mentioned, both a national and state park, so those trails are definitely not dog friendly. But there was an old gravel road, which is basically just a trail now, which was right across the road from the campground entrance. It is a dog-friendly trail. You go walk to it from camp, and that was our plan if we had the time to take our dog on a hike there. If you're interested in any of these campgrounds, you can actually go to our website, reginaroaming.com, and we put full campground reviews of all of these campgrounds on our website. And included in our review, we like to list out the best campsites. So we list out which campsites we thought were the best there, and then we normally include a short snippet of why we liked that site. So if you'd like to learn more about any of these campgrounds or campsites, check that out and it will let you know where we stayed and where we'd recommend. I hope that helped give you a few ideas of some fun places to camp in Northern California. If you have any ideas of an awesome campground that I didn't share, please let us know in the comments. We are always looking for new places to try out. If you liked this video and want to learn about any new campgrounds that we discover in the future, please subscribe to stay updated. Thanks and happy camping!